In my last post, we talked about immigration reform. I thought it might be interesting for you to hear from some experts in this field, or just some folks who have spent a lot of time thinking in this field. One is Roger McCrummen, and Roger is an attorney. He went to NYU Law School in New York. From there, he felt a call to some kind of ministry, and he went to Princeton Theological Seminary. After that, he began practicing law focused on immigration, and that's his entire focus in his law practice here in Kansas City. I wanted you to hear a couple of clips from my interview with him, and then you'll hear from Bill Gordon. And Bill Gordon is a man who is a member of Church of the Resurrection. He owns his own landscape firm and employs many seasonal workers from Mexico, but he has a heart for and has testified before Congress on behalf of this issue of immigration reform and the people, undocumented immigrants in our midst. So I hope you'll enjoy having a chance to listen to a couple of these folks. Take a listen.
The issues of people that are here without any legal status. We estimate about a little over 11 million people here. Of that group, about 40% came in legally and then overstayed or somehow violated their status. What do you do with those? A very high percentage of them, like I said, have these relationships we would have said warrant green cards, like they're married to U.S. citizens, but they've done something, overstayed, or come in illegally, and it's created some bar to them getting their status regularized. In the past, 2001 and earlier, they could pay a fine and get their status legalized if they had that relationship. But they can't do that anymore. The Congress eliminated that provision, so it's created this underclass of people who have relationships here but can't get legal. And so one of the solutions, the Senate bill had them come forward and register, come out of the shadows, which I think is a much more secure situation for the U.S. if we're worried about security, to know who they are, and they have to go through background checks and all of that kind of thing. Get registered and wait in line because we have these quotas. And we had estimated at the time that it would take about 17 years for a lot of them to actually get to the point where they'd have permanent residence in the U.S. That bill, but that was still a good thing. I mean, because it's anything that gets them regular status then helps to keep them from being abused by employers, keeps them from being deported and families separated and all of that. The Senate passed that bill. The House wouldn't take it up. And so it failed. A few years before that, the House passed a similar bill, and the Senate wouldn't take it up. And in both cases, the president said they would have signed the bill. In one case, it was President Obama. Before that, it was President Bush. They both would have signed a bill for immigration reform, but we can't seem to get Congress together on it.
You could come in and do a pretty thorough job of making sure that people couldn't stay here who are illegal, whether you build a wall or not. But the problem is what you're going to leave is a big vacuum. If you don't have the frontline janitorial people, you don't have the frontline roofers, you don't have the frontline landscape contractors, I think it's going to create a big inflationary issue in the marketplace. If I can get immigration reform and have plenty of people available that want to take this job that are here currently, great. If I can bring them in on seasonal visas, that's great too. But we need something to happen because both of those sides are getting crushed. I don't meet very many people that say, get them out of here. I just don't hear that because I think people see these guys that are migrant workers and know, that they're here to produce. They're doing good things for the economy, and I don't think they feel threatened by them. But yet, we can't figure out how to get something done somewhere when we look back, 10, 20 years from now, and we look at what's happened with immigration and how it's been broken for so long. And there's been needing to be something done, and there's been this stalemate for so long. I think we're going to be ashamed of ourselves. I really do. I think we need to be doing something to change this program, to get some visas available, to make the situation right. The country needs immigrants, so we need to come up with something, and I like the people to get behind something.
We have this fear of immigrants, and I saw that fear largely emerge for the first time in my practice after 9/11, because I never... I started in the early 90s. I never saw people associating immigration with terrorism until after 9/11. So there's a lot of attitudes that need to change, and I really think the church ought to be the place where it starts because we should have a certain ethic that transcends that fear that's in the American population. The church needs to be, I think, to echo Martin Luther King Jr., the church needs to be the conscience of the nation. And so I'd encourage the church to not get co-opted into thinking they have to belong in one camp or the other, but they need to be the conscience of the nation. When the nation acts outrageously out of fear, the church ought to say, we're not part of that.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to these clips, and I hope they help inform your own views as you're thinking about these important issues, and that together as a nation we might come up with appropriate solutions to these complex questions of immigration reform, and that we might do so in a way that we won't be ashamed of 20 years from now, and in a way that allows us to be, as Christians, the conscience of our nation.